Welcome to Fanboy Frenzy, the crossroad of entertainment and intelligence. Welcome everyone to another controversial Fanboy Frenzy news and entertainment broadcast. This time we're going to talk about the most heated subject in America today, and that is gun violence and gun control. Now, a couple of days ago, we actually had a march on March 24th called March for Our Lives. And if you listen to the media, it was just a grassroots movement by a bunch of young high school kids to try to bring awareness to how we need stricter gun laws in the United States. Well, first of all, if you know anything about these grassroots movements, whether it was the 99ers or these types of groups, Antifa, they're all funded, most of them, by MoveOn.org and the Open Society, which are all George Soros front companies. I mean, we can do a video about that down the road, about all the different things that George Soros has done to try to bring governments down to their knees. I mean, go back and look in the early 90s, what he did to the British currency. I mean, you talk about getting themselves embedded into politics. George Soros is the man for that. And he funds all these left-wing groups. But this one is very important to the discussion today. Because what happened a month and something ago at Stoneman Douglas was another tragedy. Another mass shooting in a school by a nut job. And it seems like the media always points to the gun. They never point to the person. And so the two primary, I guess you could say, activists that have come out of this has been David Hogg and Emma Gonzalez. Both of them seem like fair-minded kids. Both of them seem to be fairly well-spoken. However, what I want to call attention to is an interview back on February 14th with CNN with those two young students. Now, a lot of people, like me, would listen to them and say they actually have some pretty good points. Let's see where this goes. But if you notice, like George Soros is funding these movements, these kids are not speaking for themselves. They are being used as tools by the left wing to try to grab guns from the American citizens. Now, you may disagree, but I think by the end of this video, you will see that what I'm saying is absolute fact and is irrefutable at this point. Now, we're going to roll the footage of the video that I was discussing, and I want you to notice what David Hogg has to do when he's going to answer questions. You can clearly see that he starts with an educated answer, and then all of a sudden has to start playing with his earpiece, denoting what? Denoting he's being fed what to say from someone a hell of a lot smarter than him. Go.
But I hope that we can even spread it even farther by that point, because I know that that's going to be indescribable, but in such a positive way.
And we have to. We just can't stop, because these special interest groups are never going to. And if we don't stop and we make our voices heard as an American public together, if we make our voices heard as an American public together, we're going to have to do that if we ever want to overcome this terrible tragedy.
Now, did you also notice in this video what they said about the NRA? They want to, well, I'll let them explain it to you. Go.
So what do you say to the NRA?
Disband, dismantle.
And don't make another organization.
Yeah, don't make another organization under a different name. Don't you dare come back here. The fact that you were in power for so long and that you had so much influence for so long in America just goes to show how much time and effort we still need to spend on fixing our country.
Absolutely.
And gun control is just the first thing right now, the first thing that we are mainly focusing on.
They want to disband and dismantle the NRA. Now, I'm not a big fan of the NRA per se. I know they lobby for guns. I'm okay with that. I mean, hell, look at the pharmaceutical industry. How come people aren't going up in a hissy fit about that? But maybe that's for another video. But the reason that this is so important, is because the debate going back and forth is ignoring the crucial component to everything. You see, what the left wing fails to understand is that 90% of all mass shootings occur on gun-free zones. Let me say it again. 9 out of 10 mass shootings occur in gun-free zones. So what does that mean? It means, folks, criminals do not obey laws. That's exactly what it means. So the idea that you can just continue to pass law after law and somehow that's going to make everything better, that only works in Willy Wonka's world. It's a fantasy world. It doesn't work in reality. The bottom line is 600,000 people a year die because of being fat and overweight. Do you think that we're going to start going out and maybe jailing fat people? Or do you want to start shutting down McDonald's? I mean, what do you want to do here, folks? I mean, we got to start talking about real concerns. Now I want to show a link to a Vox.com video which dealt with mental illness and the gun control situation. And it's exactly what I talked about in this video right here. Just a few weeks ago when I discussed the Stoneman Douglas tragedy, I actually gave you statistics showing that white males tend to have a bigger issue in our culture today with mental illness, especially on being on medications repeatedly. Now, for those of you that think more laws are going to fix everything, I remind you that Nicholas Cruz, the shooter at this Stoneman Douglas school, actually followed all the protocols to, getting a gun legally. He didn't break a law. He wasn't a gangbanger. He got a gun legally. But that wasn't good enough. Now check out these statistics and what Vox says about mental illness that cannot be ignored. Go.
Victims of gun suicides are overwhelmingly men and mostly white.
Now what people have to understand is almost all gun deaths are because of homicide and suicide, not mass shootings. If you listen to these kids, they would make you think, because of the media's help, that we're like the only country this happens in, and that mass shootings are absolutely out of control, etc., and that it's the majority of all of the violence going on in America, but it's not. The bottom line is, most of all deaths, like I said before, 90% of all gun deaths are down to homicide and suicide. Now, we can't control that, can we? I guess you can make an article for gun control by saying, listen, here's the deal. If people try to commit suicide by cutting themselves or something, chances are they're going to have a second chance. But if you pull that trigger, there is no second chance. So maybe you can make some kind of an argument for that. But my thing is this: if we're going to have a true discussion about gun legislation and gun regulation more specifically, then you cannot disregard the fact of mental health, Bette Midler, and all you Hollywood idiots out there. You see, mental health is the reason fucking insane people kill people by the tens of thousands, all right? Over the years, over the last 20, 30 years. It's insane people that do that type of stuff, not sane people. So the idea that displaying mental health and just discarding it out of the subject is somehow a bad thing is ridiculous. I can have a gun laying on my desk for 40 years and it's never going to go off on its own. Somebody has to control that gun, right? So why don't we start talking about the real issues? Like, for example, Nicholas Cruz had anger issues. Nicholas Cruz had been kicked out of school. He was going to a secondary school. This kid was on an FBI watch list. This kid had as many red flags going off and nobody, legally, under the laws, nobody did anything about it. So it goes to show you that you can have all the laws in place, and again, 90% of all mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. Now, with that being said, there's a couple of statistics that need to be discussed. Out of the 90% homicides and gun deaths, suicides that are happening in the United States, when it comes to homicides, 2/3 of that are black men. And the reason for that is because the thug culture in black America really does embrace that gang lifestyle. Now some people can say, look, Ryan, they're a product of I guess you could say nature versus nurture. Well, I can understand that. If you've watched the Flint Town documentary on Netflix, you'll see that a lot of these young black males and females, they're in the shit end of the deal here, man. I mean, there's no jobs. It's the worst economy in the country. I mean, you can almost understand why you'd start slanging D, because where else is there a job to go to? You know what I mean? So I think from a white America perspective, we got to step back for a minute and not be so fast to throw grenades, but start to try to understand why people are in those positions. But the bottom line is, if you're in that gangbang culture, chances are you're going to be one of those homicides that shows up on this list. Now, with that being said, I want to bring it back around. If you remember what President Obama and the Democrats said about health care, what did they say? They said you'll be able to keep your doctor. We're not coming for your doctor or your health care. We only need you to pass this legislation so that we can try to expand the programs for other people. Now that's what politicians say. That's not what they do. What we found out was that all along they knew that less doctors were going to join the pool, that less people were going to be supplied care, and that you weren't going to be able to keep your doctor and keep that rapport that you've built. So why in God's name, since we've had young people at the rallies saying stuff like this?
Many things, so many steps to take. Like right now, sign our petition. It takes 2 seconds, and it matters. We will take the big, and we will take the small, but we will keep fighting. When they give us that inch, that bump stock ban, we will take a mile. We are not here for breadcrumbs, we are here for real change.
Why in God's name would we think that they're not going to come after the guns? Please, help me understand. And moreover, Mr. Hogg, if you think it's not against somebody's constitutional protections to have a gun, then why do you think it's against your constitutional protections to not have a clear backpack? Oh, Lord Jesus. These kids are idiots. They should go back to the Tide Pods. I mean, do you think I'm going to take advice from a 17-year-old who's never paid a bill, who clearly is a crisis actor, not in the sense that he's paid to do what he's doing, but in the sense that he's trying to make himself look intelligent because he, like President Obama, was a media creation. The biggest media creation. President Obama was like Hulk Hogan level media creation. And because of that, he always sounded good. But he was hardly ever honest about what he was saying. David Hogg, Emma Gonzalez, and the rest of these kids, they went through a traumatic situation, and for the first month, I refused to say anything about them. But here's the bottom line for everybody out there. If you get involved on the marketplace of ideas and you put your ass in this position and you start espousing views, you have to be prepared to have some bombs lobbed at you. Gun control is on the table. I myself am a fan of people who have mental illness and have extended periods of being on depression medication, or possibly people who have anger issues. I feel that they shouldn't be allowed to own a gun. That's my personal opinion. Second Amendment aside, I think it just makes sense. But what say you? Should mental illness and mental health be out of the equation? Or should everybody be able to own guns like it's Pandora and this is Borderlands? I want to know what you say, Fanboy Frenzy Army. Please make sure and drop us a line at Hyperion mailbox at fanboyfrenzy.com. And most assuredly, go to facebook.com/Fanboy Frenzy and join the Fanboy Frenzy Army. Moreover, make sure you go to fanboyfrenzy.com for all the updated news headlines of the day. But I want to know what you think. Please make sure you comment below, and let's try to build a bridge. I know I get angry. I know you get angry. But the bottom line is this. Without compromise, we all go down. Until next time, this is Ryan Jarvis from Fanboy Frenzy signing off. We'll see you soon.